Dave from Centurion coming at you. In our second video, this one is called Making a Terrain Model. Terrain models, awesome tool. This is for both active military personnel out there who want to make a bigger, better terrain model. And this is also for our airsoft clients. Great tool. Again, the advantage of having a terrain model, you can brief several people at the same time. You're not huddled around one screen, one area. You may not have a projector to put up imagery and stuff like that. So it kind of goes back old school. It gives you a 3D view of the terrain for the mission. So that's why it's best to have like the point man or the point element actually work on it, because the guy's actually visualizing the terrain that he's going to be leading the way on. And in my previous experience in the 82nd Airborne's Long Range Surveillance Detachment, the senior scout was the guy in charge of making the terrain model. And from personal experience, and as well as the experience of my peers and guys and subordinates that I worked with, that is the best tool for the guy who's going to be up on point. Knowing your terrain is critical. It also, as far as the planning goes, helps you critically think out courses of actions. If you guys don't know, you've heard of the acronym OCOCA or OACOC, however you want to put it, but it stands for observation, key terrain, obstacles, cover and concealment, and avenues of approach. And that is used for terrain analysis. When you have a 3D terrain model in front of you and it's already put together, and you kind of start working through your courses of action on how you're going to hit something, how you're going to recon something, etc. So it's an invaluable tool, and it's kind of a forgotten art. And we're going to hopefully go old school on it, and you guys will enjoy that. You'll need the following materials to make a terrain model. In the next slide that'll be coming up here, it'll magically appear. And the amount of time that you have to make the terrain model is going to vary. It'll vary on the amount of time that you have to plan and the amount of time you have to brief. So if you have quite a bit of time, you'll come up with a decent terrain model. If you don't, you're going to kind of have to put one together half-assed, but it's better than not having a terrain model on, in my opinion. So hopefully you enjoy the video. All right, so now we're going to talk about the sand. We got regular play sand that you could get. This is less than $5 at a local hardware store. 50-pound bag is what went into this. Again, this was built basically a little over 3 feet by 3 feet. It was 39 inches by 39 inches, what were the dimensions of this table particularly here. Again, whatever size you decide to go with, depending on what you want to use it for. If it's for your unit, you're a military unit, and you want to have it, in a bay planning area, then you can make it bigger. Again, make sure it's square. This is about as big as it's going to get for portability. For us, we built these handles and stuff like that so that we can move it with, and we also put some insulation. So we're going to keep the sand in here. Now, again, if you go too big, it's going to get ridiculously heavy. As it is right now, with the amount of sand I have in here, it's 50 pounds. So one bag covered this whole area, and it's probably good enough. We got an extra bag, as soon as things wear out, we lose sand or what have you, or if we get some particularly crazy looking terrain where we got lots of hills, mountains, etc., then we might need a little extra sand. So it's fine sand, no big deal. And what we're going to do next is we're going to actually build our terrain model. All right, now most of you who are probably tuning in on this maybe have seen terrain model kits or have used them before, and there's you get them at whatever, all these different Army, Navy freaking kind of stores, and they're ass. They're and on top of it, they're freaking expensive, $20 of freaking garbage. You can make your own shit, man. These are lamination. These are 3M little laminates that come in different sizes. And I got regular 5x8 cards here. And all I'm doing is I'm cutting them down to size and I'm laminating them. And what I'm going to use these for is for different stuff. I use either an alcohol marker, or I could use a grease pencil to put whatever information I got. If I'm going to use this to delineate a grid line, then I just write my grid line number on there, my grid reference line, and I'll show you a little later on how to put it on the terrain model. I could do that, or I could if it's a particular building that or the objective or rally point or whatever, I could cut it different designs, circles, squares, and laminate it, and then reuse it as many times as I want, and it would cost way freaking less, and it's a decent quality. So now we're going with a route, and here we laid it out. We got 9 perfect grid squares. We're not gonna batten down the hatches on these just yet because we're gonna pull them off and we're gonna spray paint it a little later. But I still need to have it out in order to reference each grid. So it's kind of like if anybody's been in those art schools where you paint by squares, you know, to paint a little square or draw the little square as best you can. That's what you're doing basically here. So I'm gonna I start with the high ground first, so that if I need to take sand from one area, you know, I could take it from the low ground and add it to the high ground. So I try to look for the most prominent terrain features and start there, and then just fine tune it as you're going across each grid square. This pretty much is flat. Got very little relief. A little bit of a high ground right here. So now, pretty much got the terrain where I want. Gonna try to get the fingerprints off of it now as best as I can, or finger marks. Next time I'm gonna use is Starch. Starch is gonna hold it in place, because if you just straight spray paint it, it's gonna blow the sand everywhere and it's gonna make a giant mess. So what the Starch does, it basically glues it in place. It's gonna fine tune it as well. So any kind of generic Starch, it's only like maybe $2-3 a can, and it'll last you quite a while. So this needs to be part of your terrain model kit. All right, we just finished starching. As you can see, kind of leaves pretty wet. And now when we'll give it a second while it's drying up a little bit and getting a little harder. We're gonna go ahead and remove the 550 gut out of the way. That way we don't spray paint it and the grid lines stand out. All right, as you can see, you want to go with earth tones, obviously, whatever the terrain is. You know, that from imagery and from your maps, you color it a respective color. Goes without saying. Go with a flat color. Now you'll notice that as I spray paint, I don't have sand blowing everywhere, so it's awesome. It works great. All right, now what I've done here is I accented the high ground, like pretending that the sun's rising in the east and it's still morning time, and it's highlighting the eastern side of it, so you can see it makes the terrain pop that much more. I also highlighted with in darker colors the low grounds, because that's where most of your vegetation is going to be at, so you accentuate. All right, so once you're done with the sand parts and the painting, we're foregoing the blue. We'd obviously mark this low ground with blue because we've got streams going through it. You could use chalk, engineering chalk. They come in bottles, and it's a narrow nozzle, so it makes a nice little straight line and doesn't blow straight stuff everywhere. What you could also do as well is blue spray paint, and those little narrow straws. If you got a WD-40, you can put a narrow straw on there and it'll blow a line really narrow. Just keep in mind, keep a little bit of distance, because it comes out of there pretty, and take it easy on the nozzle, because it comes out of there with some decent velocity, and even though you have starch and paint on this now, it may disrupt it. So there's 2 options. I personally like chalk because it's easy to do. Once I've done all the painting and the chalk, the underneath stuff, then we can start putting layers of stuff on top of it. And in this particular case, I've already put down the road. This brown 550 delineates roads that are on the map. All right, that wraps up our how to make a terrain model video. Hope it's useful. You can see this is our finished product. We finished laying out our grid lines and identified them. Again, you don't need to add too many. You know, we read right and up, so we have the 38, 39, 40. There's no need for the 41 grid line because there's nothing here. And same thing, no need for a 1/6 grid line because there's nothing there. As we went along, we marked our primary route. Obviously, you'd have like alternate and any other contingencies that you'd be taking in and out. You'd also have an exfil if you have an exfil. So there's other stuff that's obviously not on here, but that's up to whatever your guys are running on your mission. Here on the board, the nice thing about the lid is that we could also use it as a supplement to our mission planning. Here we backed it with chalk paint, and we get right on it with chalk. So here we just did a quick generic task org to give you guys a good idea. You can also pin your any products that you might have or bring along to up here. So, you know, imagery, close-ups of the objectives, buildings and such. And yeah, you could also, you know, get fancy. You could actually have existing task orgs that you could laminate, much like I just did this, and then you just grease pencil it and then just throw it up here and boom, you're done. So it's, you don't need electronics, you don't need freaking all this high-speed shit. You just, with a little preparation beforehand, you could have a very, very good planning tool for real-world shit if you're still in the military, or you know, airsoft stuff. That's awesome too. So hope you enjoyed the vid. All right, we're done with our brief. We gave our brief, took questions, whatever. We're getting ready to go get it and get it on. It's time to tear it up. Not a big deal. Obviously, we made this to be reused, so let's keep the laminated portions in our little action figures and stuff. As you don't want to waste all the sand, and you want to separate it. So what we're gonna do is just basically scoop in sand, sift it like you're a gold miner, and all that painted shit, just get rid of it. You'll get that nice clean sand again.